We're obviously very frustrated. Frustrated with the way we played, but also frustrated that we played well enough to get a result, but fell just short. So, we're frustrated and disappointed.
I think when they kicked the first goal of the last quarter, sort of what happened from that point on to sort of get yourself back in, and it almost feels like you could have snatched it really late.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, scoreboard suggests we probably would have snatched it, but I mean, statistically, we were most things we were pretty pleased with. They got on top of us in the clearances in the second quarter, which was a big reason why they were able to kick goals in that second quarter. We lost. We're down -6 in the centre bounces. They were able to score easily on the back of our just simple, basic, fundamental errors, unpressured errors in the conditions. So we were disappointed that we still were trying to play perfect footy in really slippery conditions. So our kick to handball ratio wasn't what we wanted it to be. And funnily enough, once we addressed that, we started to look better going forward and had inside 50 dominance and territory dominance. But to Sydney's credit, they held up really well defensively. They got their numbers back, and we just couldn't create enough opportunities to score. Although we had enough opportunities from our entries to try and score from those, but it was just the efficiency. And again, credit to Sydney because they're very good at holding up under a bombardment like that.
Given where you are in the season, does it hurt even more being so close that it could have been a victory to kickstart anything along those lines? Or?
Yeah, I try not to think like that. You just got to take. I think the last 2 weeks have been positive. Where last 3 weeks you can take real positives out of it, and we've won one of those 3 games. So, last week we did a lot right. We took that into the first quarter, and looked like we were dominating the game early. But just a really disappointing failure to adapt to the way the game was being played in the conditions in the second quarter, which doesn't make a lot of sense because you've already played half an hour of footy. But we just overused the ball in the second half, and the Swans were good enough to capitalise on their opportunities.
How do you sort of reconcile some of the poor decision making that you've mentioned there with the fact that Sydney were playing a pretty inexperienced team there, and they sort of seem to have that composure? How do you sort of reconcile that?
Oh, I just think that it's pretty easy it's just basic footy, really. So you can be your own worst enemy at times. Like we tried to overuse the ball. Sydney just played it simple. So, how do I reconcile it? I think that simple footy for good players sometimes is too easy. As I said, when we adjusted it, I mean the game clearly changed.
The sort of issues that you had last week with just obviously competed really well, but then just lacking a little bit of polish at the end. How much similarity do you see between the two performances there?
No, I think it's a little bit different today. The conditions make it really difficult to score, and particularly with Sydney getting a lot of numbers back. We made some personnel adjustments at half time and really tried to make their defenders accountable, but they were still able to get back and mark the ball in our forward 50, which when we got it to ground we looked pretty dangerous. But again, I think the difference in the game is just that we overused the ball. They were simple with the ball. We gave them just some easy goals through fundamental errors, and they were better than that. We didn't kick too many easy goals against them today. We had to work hard for everything.
It's a pretty niggly game throughout. Do you sort of think that your guys got caught up in the emotion of it at times?
No, I didn't think we lost our cool at any point, but guys were really composed at the breaks. I mean, I can't speak out there, but I think they focused on the task well enough. But it's always going to be a little bit niggly when you get two teams that play a pretty contested style.
Did you feel as though you could have been warranted a free kick right at the death there in that ruck contest?
Maybe, but I can't control those things as much as you'd like to. But no, if you spend too much time getting caught up in all that, then you do your head in. Again, just the feel for the game stuff I reckon is really important. And I commented during the week that some common sense at times is is a good thing, even though the letter of the law gets umpired most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't. State of the game and all those things. But again, we just got to focus on what we did wrong and let others. The umpires have got coaches, just like players have got coaches.
How did you assess Jack Siebel's game tonight, mate? He was pretty big in willing you guys there and nearly getting you across the line.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're a bit of a catch-22. We just felt we weren't getting value for our forward forays in the first half, so we pushed him forward. But then, you know, he was enormous around the ball in the last quarter and a half. So that's what you love to see from your captain when the game's on the line, and you need someone to change the course of the game that they go and do that. But Jack was fantastic.
2-7 now, Brad. Like, does it tip the balance? Like, you obviously have been playing young players this season, but does it tip the balance in terms of more development than where you're at on the ladder, I guess?
No, we're all about development. So it wouldn't change if we were 7-2. You know, for 3 years now, we said we need to build our midfield. So we now we're in a more fortunate position than we were, say, all the way back when I first started, when Jack Siebel and Ben Cunnington played midfield every week, regardless of how they were going, because we didn't have anyone else. Now we have the luxury of leaving Jai Simpkin out a few weeks ago to work on some things and bringing him back, and the same will happen with Luke Davies-Uniacke at various stages. So. We've got to develop those young players, and that would be irrespective of win-loss.
So does it influence what you do with guys like Siebel? Like, he's played really well in the midfield the last few weeks. Does it sort of influence how much of that balance he plays in the midfield? Not
really. No, it'll still be. We don't think we're going to jeopardise the development of any of our young midfielders with the midfield mix. I mean, it's not as if we're absolutely loading up with inside mids, and guys who we want to get time in there are not in there. So that the balance was okay tonight, and it will continue.